afternoon and welcome to Football League World TV. It's time for another debate show for you this afternoon. This morning we spoke all about Stoke City. Alfie and Toby went through all things Potters, but today, this afternoon, we're going to be talking about Millwall and their chances of promotion next season. The main question we're going to be asking, are Millwall automatic promotion contenders next season? My name is Sam Rourke, the Chief Editor of Football League World at UK. I'm joined by my colleague Ben Wignall to discuss the Lions this afternoon. Wignall, how you getting on, mate?
Yeah, all right. A set of space there. No, being ambushed by flies like the transfer zone yesterday. So all good.
Good to hear. That's good to hear. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So please do get yourself in the comments. What do you make of Millwall's chances in the Sky Bet Championship next season? Do you fancy them to be up there in and around that top six? We'd love to get your thoughts on it. Right, let's get straight into the show. Right, Ben, let's rewind then back to last season quickly then for Millwall. A ninth place finish for Gary Rowett's side. We're flirting with the playoffs for a large period of the 21-22 season, but ultimately didn't make it into that playoff mix. What did you make of Millwall last season? Drew 15 games, the second most in the second tier last season. What did you make of them firstly? And do you think the amount of draws last season was a bit of a hindrance for them?
Potentially, yeah. I think the only team that had more draws were my team, Preston. No offence, it was a bit of a drab affair watching them sometimes, but I think it was a solid season for him. I think since they've been back in the Championship since 2017, apart from one season where they've finished 20, I think they've always been in the around the playoff mix, not quite being able to have that kind of cutting edge to get in there. They've always been on the periphery of it. And they've always been solid defensively. There's been a lot of 0-0s, 1-1s last season. But, I think they've just lacked that cutting edge at the top end of the field. That sounds a bit silly when you consider, Jed Wallace has been in the team. They had Benik Afobe hitting double figures last season, and also Tom Bradshaw had a decent scoring record. But I think on a consistent basis, you need that a few more options, and I think they just lacked a bit of depth at times when they needed it at the top end of the pitch. But I think they were solid enough, though. I think it was about what you can expect from what they've done in recent years, and the squad they had last season. You could probably say they maybe overachieved by finishing in mid-table. So it was, I think it was all around a good season for them.
Yeah, I think a lot of Millwall fans would agree with that sort of statement there. They are a team that aren't necessarily blessed with a wealth of funds to sort of utilise in the transfer markets. They've done well over the last couple of seasons, but I suppose the aim this season coming will be to break into that top six mix-up. Right, let's just touch on Jed Wallace then Ben. A player that was a large topic of debate at Millwall over the last couple of months. Will he stay? Won't he stay? Where's he going to go? He has, of course, now left Millwall. His contract expired. He's now joined Steve Bruce's West Brom. How do you think Millwall will cope without Wallace next season, Ben? Do you think they'll be able to cope without him? Do you think they'll be able to do as well? Because he has been such a key asset for them over the last few seasons.
Yeah, I think it's probably tough to say at this point. He's been kind of their talisman for years, with the goals and assists he's scored. But I do think with Gary Rowett's changing system, I think a year ago he moved to more of a 3-5-2, 3-4-1-2 formation. Jed Wallace's best position is probably out wide on the right, whipping crosses in, getting behind the man. And with this change of formation, he was playing, either as a striker or attacking midfielder. So I think even though he had a good season last season, as the stats show, I think he's probably wasn't at his best in the final months or even the full final season of his Millwall career. I think even though he's quite clearly one of the best players in the Championship, and that's why he's gone to West Brom, where you assume he's on a bigger pay packet than he was at Millwall. I think that the club could potentially progress without him. I think they've getting a natural number 10 in who's played in the attacking midfield role in Holland for the last few years in Zion Fleming. That could make them potentially push on. Obviously, we've not seen him playing English football yet. We don't know how he'll adapt to the Championship, but I don't think losing Jed Wallace is the be-all and end-all. Obviously, they've had some good finishes in the Championship with him in the team, but I think they've got a younger attacking player in now, and now's the time they can potentially progress to be the top 6 side.
Yeah, I was listening to a Millwall podcast this morning, and there's almost a sense of relief that this Jed Wallace saga is over, because it was a cloud that was sort of looming over the club for the last few months. But his future has, of course, now been resolved, and they can look forward to a new season without Wallace. We're going to touch on some of the new signings later on in this show, Ben. Let's just touch on a couple of players that could sort of fill that void already at Millwall. We look at someone like Tyler Brewery, who sort of came onto the scene in the latter stages of the last campaign at Millwall, and also Mason Bennett, who perhaps hasn't fulfilled his potential at the new Den. Are them two players you feel could have a bit of a breakthrough season next season at Millwall? Are they players you feel could really kick on? I mean, Bury's impressed in pre-season, scored against Dartford on the weekend. Is he someone you could see kick on?
I'm unsure. I think with Bury obviously had a good loan spell at Hartlepool first part of last season, and he came into the Millwall squad for the second half of the season. But like Wallace, he's a natural winger, and if Rowett's going to stick with the kind of formation where the only width he's getting is from the wing backs, then it's hard to see him fully fitting in. I think he's been playing up front in the times he has been appearing for Millwall, Bury, and can he be an option up front? Yeah, potentially, but I think his development might be better next season by potentially heading out on a kind of a full season League One loan to the potentially mid-table top end of that league. I don't think it'll potentially do any good sitting on the bench for most of the season and getting his odd chance. I think he needs to be playing week in, week out. We know he's pretty talented. He's a quick player, and I think he can potentially push on with a loan. As for Mason Bennett, he seems like he's been around for a while, since he was like a 16-year-old at Derby. He's always had the potential, but he's never quite lived up to it. I think he scored 3 goals last season for Millwall, and I think you'd be looking for a bit better from him. I think he's a good squad option, but I can't see him being a player who'll slot in either in the attacking midfield role or up front as an out-and-out starter. He can come off the bench and do a job, but I'm not sure he's this kind of talent level that Millwall need to push on to the next level. So definitely, I think they could add an option or two in that final third, aside from Bury and Bennett being there.
Yeah, we're going to touch on some of the new signings that could sort of help fill that Jed Wallace void. Tyler Bury did play in a number 10 position for Millwall in their last pre-season friendly, which suggests he's quite versatile in the final third, so could be utilised in various roles there. We've had a few comments come in. Wayne Walden, great to have you with us this afternoon. Fulham fan, I think that Millwall will be up in the playoffs in the Championship. Ben, you'll like Wayne's next comment. Fulham fan, I think Preston will be the dark horse in the Championship. We'll perhaps leave that debate for another show here on the channel. But right, let's continue our chat on Millwall. Right, let's touch on some of the Lions' transfer business this summer. A number of quite intriguing additions for the Bermondsey club this summer. In particular, Zian Fleming, who, Ben, you've already mentioned in this show, broke their club transfer record fee to bring him over from Holland to the London club. But an attacking midfielder, scored 12 goals for Fortuna Sittard in the Eredivisie last season. Looks at a really exciting talent. Obviously untested in England, and the Sky Bet Championship will be a different challenge for the player, but one that a lot of Millwall fans are really excited about. Ben, I'd imagine you probably haven't seen too much of Fleming play. I've only seen various clips and highlight reels on YouTube. He looks good. I mean, anyone can look good on YouTube though, but he does it like a player with a lot of technical ability and ability to unlock defences and score goals. He sounds like a player that could do quite well. What's your sort of thoughts on the Fleming addition?
Yeah, I live a pretty busy life, so I don't tend to fit the Eredivisie into my my busy schedule. But I've seen clips of him like you have, and he does look like the kind of player that Millwall have done well to splash the cash on. But the Dutch league's probably not as strong as it was a few years ago in the early 2000s. But he's got a fantastic record in the last 2 seasons. I think he's 24 goals and 11 assists for Fortuna Sittard. I think Nottingham Forest wanted him last summer, and we've seen their recruitment recently has been very good. So that's a good sign. But I think this is a really big coup for Millwall. You know, he's 23 years old. He's still got lots of years ahead of him. And looking at the highlights, he looks pretty physically strong. He can score a variety of different goals, and he's also pretty versatile. You know, he can probably slot into the number 10 role as the first choice, but he can also play up front. You know, I think when Millwall want to play defensive in a more solid 3-5-2, he could probably play off Benik Afobe. He knows kind of tough away game, so he offers Gary Rowett with a lot of versatility, and they needed someone creative to replace Jed Wallace, and you know they've splashed the money out on him. They'll be hoping for a good return on their investment, and on paper it looks like a really exciting signing.
Yeah, he's already been dubbed the Bermondsey Bergkamp by a plethora of Millwall fans, which is quite an interesting name to dub him with. No sort of pressure for Fleming there, the Bermondsey Bergkamp. Millwall fans, if you're watching this, get yourself in the comments. You're excited about Zian Fleming and what he could potentially bring to your side for the new season. We'd love to get your thoughts on that in particular. Well, let's just touch on then some of the other done deals that Millwall have completed over the last few weeks. We've seen Benik Afobe return to the Den. They did, of course, enjoy a loan spell at Millwall last season, scoring 12 championship goals across the duration of the season. Lots of Millwall fans pleased with this. Afobe himself seems quite pleased with this as well. What's your stance on this one? Is he going to provide the goals Millwall need to be contending at the top?
I think he could do, yeah. I think obviously he's had a bit of a hit and miss last few years. It worked out from at Stoke, and he had a loan spell out in Turkey that wasn't really productive. He was on the bench a lot, but I think going to Millwall's potentially rediscovered his kind of best form. We know what his best is, a top end championship striker, and he's. I think he just needed a bit of an arm around him to put his best foot forward, and getting 12 goals last season is definitely a very good return for a team that's probably not viewed as the most creative in the championship. I wasn't sure what was going to happen to him this summer, to be fair. You know, a year left on his Stoke deal, is on pretty hefty wages, but it seems like they've come to some sort of agreement to allow him to go to Millwall, and that's probably what Afobe wanted. You know, a club that clearly rates him and wants him in the plans, and I think he can probably do the same what he did last season at Millwall again. He's still only 29 as well, so he's in kind of the peak of his powers, and it feels like he's been around forever, doesn't it? He's been at 12 different clubs already, which is kind of remarkable. I don't think Millwall would have been as close to the playoffs as they were last season without him. I know Bradshaw scored 9, but I think Afobe's goals in particular are pretty important. So it's a very good signing on a free transfer, and you know I'm looking forward to seeing especially how he links up with Zian Fleming.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine Afobe will be pleased with the addition of Fleming, who's likely to create a lot of chances for the striker. Another comment coming in on YouTube from Joshua Pullen. Fleming is quality. Think top 6 is a certainty. Please keep your comments coming in. We really do appreciate you getting in touch with us during this live show. Right, Ben, let's touch on some of the other done deals then. At Millwall, George Honeyman has arrived following his departure from Hull City. An industrious workhorse of a midfield that I'd imagine a lot of Millwall fans will like. What's your stance on this one?
I was surprised at this one. I thought Honeyman would be an important player despite the kind of revolution at Hull this summer. I thought he'd go into next season as a very important player, but I think he does bring something different to Millwall's midfield. I think for the most part, the midfield's full of kind of solid players, but no one who's really got an eye for goal who can push forward. I know that George Saville was that kind of player a few years ago, but he's not really shown it in the last couple of seasons. They've also got, Ryan Leonard and Billy Mitchell, who are both kind of industrious, hardworking, but you never really think like they're going to get on the end of crosses and get into the box and score. I think Honeyman's a bit different to that. He can be really creative. He can get into the final third, and he's also very energetic. So I think he's a player that Millwall fans are going to like. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he does have an end product as well. And I don't think they pay too much for him. So I think it's a good deal all around for Millwall, and especially if they can get Jamie Shackleton as well on loan. I think he's been linked in recent weeks, and that it makes the midfield even better. But as for Honeyman, it's a very smart, astute signing by Gary Rowett, and it does strengthen that midfield a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the whole City reaction was quite despondent, really, when they saw that he was going to Millwall. Lots of unhappy Tigers fans. Millwall fans quite pleased with this deal in particular. You'd imagine he's going to be a guaranteed starter under Gary Rowett next season, given the sort of quality he's shown in the EFL over the last few seasons. Right, one more player to touch on that Millwall brought in, and that's Charlie Cresswell from Leeds United. The 19-year-old defender looks a physical, imposing player for his age. He's there's a few clips of him on social media barging an opposition player off the ball when he was defending, but looks a good player. Looks a technically gifted player as well, able to pass out from the back. Obviously, Millwall had Dan Ballard last season. He was such a key component of the side last term. He's now joined Sunderland. But Cresswell will be joining. What's your thoughts on this one, Ben? It's looking like quite a physical back line now when you look at Jake Cooper and Sean Hutchinson in there as well. It's an imposing back line that we're starting to build, isn't it?
Yeah, even though I don't know too much about Cresswell, I was hoping that PNE would be a club that are in from his Preston, born and bred from his the time his dad Richard spent at North End in the early 2000s. So I thought that Preston link would be good to come in, but he's ended up going to Millwall, and I think it is a good Ballard replacement. You know, Ballard was a very good, solid signing for him last summer, and obviously he's gone on to sign permanently for Sunderland, having got that platform with Millwall. I think obviously he's highly rated. Cresswell, he's got I think 6 caps for the under-21s for England, and he played I think 5 times. I don't know if he were cameos, but 5 times for Leeds in the Premier League. So you know, he's very well thought of, and the Championship's clearly the next step in his development, and he can just slot straight into that Ballard slot that he had last season. I think Millwall, you know, as we know, they've been very defensively solid in the last few years, and I think there's no real better team to learn your defensive trade with than Millwall. You know, next to the likes of Cooper, Hutchinson, and Murray Wallace, he'll get led through games if he needs to, and you know, he'll make up a very powerful and hard-headed trio.
Yeah, Millwall fans, get yourself in the comments. What do you make of the addition of Charlie Cresswell? Do you expect him to be a guaranteed starter in Rowett's 11? We'd like to get your thoughts on that one. So a key talking point and something that could dictate how well Millwall do next season is the future of Dan McNamara. Now, us at Football League World exclusively revealed a month or two ago that QPR were keen on signing McNamara in this summer transfer window. As we understand it, 2 bids have been placed by QPR, but they've been swiftly rebuffed by the Lions. Millwall have offered McNamara a new deal, but it's yet to be concluded. McNamara played 37 times in the Championship for Millwall at right wing back last season, has really proven to be a top player for the Lions, emerging as one of the better right backs in the Championship. Ben, just how important is it that Millwall get this contract sorted for McNamara, because he is one of their shining lights, isn't he?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think since his loan move to St Johnstone in 2020, he's gone from strength to strength, and you know, for the last year and a half, he's basically been Gary Rowett's first choice at the Den. You know, he gives him good width going forward on the right flank, and he's pretty solid defensively. And I know he's only got 1 year left on his deal, but I think the reported £300,000 offer from QPR is just a bit criminal, isn't it? He's even with 1 year left on his deal, he's worth a hell of a lot more than that. And I imagine Millwall laughed it off, and I think it outraged the fans a little bit that such an offer was made. Imagine it'll take a lot more for the Millwall to consider even an offer to sell him. Not that he should let him go to a divisional rival, because that could bite them in the backside a bit. But I think that it's a very important to get a contract sorted for him. I imagine he's going to be one of the best right backs in the division in the next few years. He's a very solid one at the minute, and you know, he's Millwall through and through. He came through the academy, so he's definitely a player that the fans won't want to see go. And if he stays, he could. If they do get in the top 6 this season, he could be one of the leading lights of the team.
Yeah, Millwall fans, let us know your thoughts on the McNamara situation. Do you expect him to stay at the New Den ahead of the new Championship season? Right, let's really start getting into the crux then of the main debate question on this show. Are Millwall promotion dark horses in the Sky Bet Championship next season? Anyone watching this on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, get yourself in the comments. Do you think Millwall can get promoted next season? If so, will it be automatically or will it be via the playoffs? So I had another comment coming in from Joshua Pun. Great to have you with us this afternoon. Can't see him going. I assume that refers to Dan McNamara. I'd imagine that's a statement that many Millwall fans will hope comes true, that McNamara remains at the club. Right, Ben, let's really get into this question then. It's quite a wide open championship, I personally feel, this 22-23 campaign. None of the relegated sides really standing out right now as clear frontrunners, in my opinion. As per Sky Bet, Millwall are 9th favourites to secure promotion from the Championship. 15-2 was the price I got this morning on the bookmakers. What's your stance then on Millwall and a potential promotion push? Do you think they've got the ingredients to launch a genuine bid for the top two?
Top two could be a push at this stage. I'm hesitant to commit to anything to say they're ready for that yet. I think when you consider the teams that are coming down, I think Norwich haven't done much, but they've not let the star players go. There's Burnley who have undergone a really big rebuild, but they're signing some really talented players on paper. It's all a case of they can kind of put it all together. And then there's Watford who are, under a new manager who's got new ideas, and they'll probably lose a few big players between now and the end of the transfer window. So that's an interesting team to look at. But I think when you consider Millwall have got a lot of their business done early, on paper they do look stronger than last season. And I think you have to consider them, considering they came so close to the playoffs and the fact they've strengthened the team in different positions. I think they've got to be considered a contender for the top 6. But I think for the top 2 right now, I think they would be big dark horses, but I'd be, I wouldn't say right now on paper they'd be top 2 contenders, but top 6 for sure. I can see them pushing in there, but a lot of teams haven't done a lot of business so far, and I think it'll be at the end of August we'll see a better picture. There'll be 7 games gone of the season, and everyone will have done their transfer business. So it'll be better to see then what I think of Millwall. But right now, I can see them being a good contender for the playoffs. But top 2 right now, I'm not particularly sure about that.
Yeah, like you say, there is still a long way to go in the summer transfer window. Lots of business to be done, both in and out at Millwall, you'd imagine. Please do send in your comments before we wrap up this show. Do you think Millwall are promotion dark horses in the Sky Bet Championship next season? So, Ben, you think that Millwall have a chance of the playoffs, but the top 2 is probably out of reach right now. Let's just touch on their strengths and weaknesses then Millwall. Let's just touch on the weaknesses first. Do you think there are any weaknesses in that Lions team that may prevent them from breaching that top 2? I think for me in particular, it's perhaps the lack of squad depth right now. I think on paper, their starting 11 is pretty strong, but I'd be a little bit concerned as to who they could bring off the bench to impact games, especially with 5 substitutes now being enforced across the game. What's your sort of stance on any weaknesses that Millwall might have?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, and I think a position mainly they could probably do strengthening is up front, even though they have brought in, Benik Afobe, and they've got Tom Bradshaw, who scored 9 in 24 games last season, which is a good return, but I think he's got questionable fitness. Mason Bennett and Tyler Bury there, but I can't see them being kind of prolific next season. Like we said, Bury's only an up-and-coming player, and he probably needs a loan move to League One to get game time each week. And Bennett's never really been prolific in his career. So I think they could potentially do with a more physical kind of presence at the top end of the pitch. In recent years, they've had John Daddy Bodvarsson, Matt Smith. They've had a few players with that ilk, and I think someone perhaps a little bit more mobile, but who's got the size to make an impact, maybe off the bench. That could be a place to improve. But I think apart from that, I can't think of many positions that need too much strengthening. I think the midfield seems to be covered, especially if Jamie Shackleton comes in from Leeds and he can also cover at right wing back. So that's two positions which are sorted. Maybe at left wing back, obviously you've got Scott Malone, who's a solid Championship player, but Murray Wallace as well can play out there. Maybe you could do with someone a little bit younger out there to challenge Malone. But I think the main position they probably need to strengthen in is before the end of the window is up front with a bit of a physical presence.
Millwall fans, do you agree with Ben's words there? Do you think a new striker could bolster your chances of success next season? Just briefly touch on the goalkeeper, Ben. I mean, Bartosz Białkowski's been a fantastic figure in between the sticks for the Lions over the last few seasons. He is now 35. Do you expect him to have another strong season at that sort of age? I mean, goalkeepers tend to go past the years, don't they, when it comes to playing in their career? What's your sort of stance on Białkowski? Do you think it will be good enough to sort of do well next season?
Don't see why not. He's been playing at a very good Championship level for a number of years, and I think he's barely missed a game for Millwall over the years. So I think can't see any reason why I wouldn't keep on performing to the best of his abilities. He's probably been one of Millwall's best and consistent players over the years. I know he's getting on to the last stage of his career, but like I said, goalkeepers tend to last a lot longer than the outfield players, and he still seemingly got those reflexes. So yeah, I think he's going to be the first choice keeper again next season, and I expect big performances from him.
Right, well, that brings an end to this afternoon's debate here on Football League World TV. We've been debating Millwall and their promotion aspirations next season. Ben feels that Millwall could reach the playoffs, but a top two spot might just be out of reach at this stage of the summer. Please do get yourself in the comments if you're watching this on repeat on YouTube. Millwall fans, we want to hear from you. How are you feeling ahead of the new season? Do you think promotion is a realistic objective for the Lions' next campaign? Just a reminder, please do like this video on YouTube and subscribe to Football League World TV on YouTube if you do enjoy what we are doing. We've got so much exciting content coming for you over the next few weeks. Tomorrow, we've got one show for you in the morning. We're going to be taking a look at Charlton Athletic and the new Ben Garner era at the Valley. But from myself and Ben, we shall see you soon.